So yes, my name is Bahadir. I work for the Leprosy Mission England and Wales. I'm not an artist. I'm not a creative. I'm actually a recovering academic turned aid worker. So as Marianne was saying, just returned from Mozambique, and when I found out about the topic of this conference, I thought maybe we have something to tell. Okay, I should make this full screen, right? So this is something. There's an abstract I wrote for a presentation last year at the International Leprosy Congress, and what I'm suggesting is campaigns and interventions that focus on leprosy awareness, disease and complications management, stigma alleviation, traditionally rely on transmissive educational approaches such as printed materials, that could be leaflets, posters, audiovisual media, that could be radio messages, short videos, sometimes films, or experts like health post workers, health extension workers. And the effectiveness of these approaches is usually stunted by barriers that are specific to the local context in which they're presented. These barriers could be lack of access to radio or television, high illiteracy, and sometimes also top-down attitudes coming from outside and just talking at people and then leaving, not necessarily aware of the context of the targeted communities. And of course, transmissive approaches, like some I mentioned, will always be vital to any education awareness campaign, any intervention. However, they alone can't be adequate to take us, in the case of leprosy, to the last mile to zero leprosy. Because zero leprosy requires the utilization of a variety of resources, and not least what I will call vernacular pedagogies that have traditionally existed in the local communities that we work in and that leprosy is endemic. So while transmissive approaches rely on conveying, translating, disseminating information to a passive audience, vernacular pedagogies can help community members become active participants in their learning, so they can more fully capture and represent the experiences of the people living in the local context and narratives of their marginalized voices. In this case, I'm talking about leprosy, but I can't see why this shouldn't apply to any other NTDs where the communities we try and reach live. And as a result of this vernacular approach, community members can become knowledge creators and develop a sense of a learning community and discover new ways of understanding what's going on around them. I say vernacular pedagogies. What I mean by them, I said I was in Mozambique only a few days ago. In that context, song is very important. Dance, you see it everywhere. Drumming, ritual performances are embedded in the culture, in the way people communicate with each other, but also teach each other and also produce knowledge. Speaking of Mozambique, this is one of the villages I was at. This is a village hall, for lack of better description. This is where almost all the social interactions take place. And when NGOs and organizations like us go to villages, this is usually where we end up meeting people. Has anyone been to Mozambique in this room? Okay, so some of you are familiar with the local context. This is in Cabo Delgado, in the furthermost northern province of Mozambique. And as I said, when we go to a place like this is where we do the training on leprosy awareness, complications management, referrals, training, ulcers, wounds, how to look after them. Self-care groups will be meeting in a place like this, and WASH training can happen. There's no reason why. Business training. You can imagine any training provided by pretty much any NGO will take place in an environment like this. And what strikes me is when you get out of the car and on your way to the village hall, you're always, always greeted by song. You're always greeted by some performance that says welcome to you. And the few times I asked the people around me what the song was about, it's a simultaneous annotation of what's happening at that moment. These are not very sophisticated songs, messages. They're just telling, as the event is happening, they're just singing what's happening, which I found, really, really interesting. And then, of course, what we do usually is we then walk into the village hall, we have our flip charts with us, we have our posters and videos, and then we do our training and then leave the place. Leaving that performance, that song in the periphery. If we're feeling like participatory, we sometimes, have some role play in the training, but that's where we keep it. It's got a place, but it's in the periphery. So a short time ago, we decided to try something new, new for us, at least. We decided to take some risks and pilot something. And our focus shifted to, rather than transmissive education, where some of our NGO staff or some of the local staff or even healthcare staff are providing or giving training, we decided to shift the focus to the community's own resources. And we used two set of tools. One of them, you will see here, is quite tangible. This is, on the left side, you see my local colleague. He's an IT expert, and he's one of the 5 people employed in the Mozambique team now, so quite a big investment. He is setting up a solar panel, and there's an aerial there, which provides the power to the boxes which you see on the right-hand side. That's cutting-edge technology for you. There's a Raspberry Pi inside one of those boxes, and there's a small projector, a very cheap small projector. And Raspberry Pi is how much? £30, I think it costs. But then, as far as I'm concerned, it's sorcery. But this wonderful IT technician puts all sorts of information using that Raspberry Pi, and then that's transmitted in the village hall to the screen. And it's a very extremely simple contraption, and they've been working on it for months. It's had many different iterations and incarnations. This is what it looked like last week. So that's the first set of tools. And the second set of tools we gave to the community was a very simple, again, for lack of better words, I will call it project management training. Our partners sat down with the local community members and using a method called umoja, which apparently in Swahili means togetherness or unity, they gave a very simple training on identifying problems, identifying local resources, and then coming up with local solutions to those problems using the local resources. So it is, I want to emphasize, it is extremely simple. Just bring people together, give them time to discuss what the local problems are and what they can do about those problems. So these are the two main tools we open space for in that community. And we also trained a few project support officers, we call them a few local community members on filming. Again, using extremely simple and cheap cameras. They were trained how to cut videos, how to use the right angle, how to use the light. Very, very simple training. Again, those cameras we bought on Amazon for £30, I think, or something like that. So quite, relatively cheap. But the idea behind it is, as the community members are, through their training, through their project management training, problem-solving training, as they are trying to solve the problems in their localities, the idea is to also film them and produce knowledge for the other communities around them. So there's an aspect of, there's an angle of production, reproduction, and then dissemination. And this is all done in the locality, and we have no say on what the problems are being discussed. We don't control it. We just give them the tools, and then they decide what they are going to tackle, what they are going to talk about, and what they are going to film. So again, producers are villagers, and the audience are also the villagers in the next villages, usually. Okay, so I don't want to take a lot of time because we are close to close time. So I want to show you two different videos. This is I think last Wednesday, I captured two, and again, I just filmed them using my own phone, but this gives you a sense of what they are producing. And this is a group affected by leprosy. They go to nearby villages, they formed a committee, and they go to nearby villages to talk about leprosy, to look for symptoms of leprosy in other people. They literally knock on doors and call people to the village hall, and then look at people's symptoms. And they do a lot of this by singing, and in this case, a theater performance. I will show you, but I can't. Can I? Yes. So this one is touching on stigma and exclusion to start with. It's in the local Makwa language. I don't know whether I should do a running commentary. I feel it's quite obvious, but maybe I'm over-familiar. The excluded men is found by the Leprosy Committee, who have knowledge of what leprosy is about. And so they will, maybe I should fast forward, because the language is a barrier, isn't it? For us, for them it's not, obviously. It's a good time for language to be a barrier. And then at the end of the story, the man is taken to a health post by the volunteers, by this leprosy committee, and he's given medication. Oh, there you go. That's the guy at the health post. But I will move to the next video because, as I said, my goal is just to give you a taste of what these look like when community members themselves produce these. And this is at the end of this performance. This is a song on leprosy stigma. This is short. So at this point he's saying, just because you have leprosy, don't think you will not be able to get married. You can get married to that woman. And again, just because you have leprosy, don't think you can't go to school. You will be able to go to school. At this point, there's something about farming going on. I can't remember what they were saying. I've witnessed lots of training times in these village halls, but I've never seen the audience this captivated There's no language barrier. The methods, the methodology they're seeing is very much at home for them. They immediately understand, and obviously it is created by their neighbors. So these people go to, as I said, go to surrounding villages and disseminate this message and find leprosy, find new cases. One thing that's obvious is these are very simple messages, aren't they? Very simple messages, but that's where the power lies. And I showed you earlier the cutting-edge technology that they use to capture, to film these so that they can be shown in other community hubs, which are solar-powered, as I said. Evidence, it's quite early, as we like to say, in academia, but I have seen, in the last 6 months, I have seen a significant rise of, just looking at the reports, just seen a significant rise in new cases. When I was there, in this very village, I think there were 2 or 3 new cases of leprosy found and diagnosed that day. They were given MDT immediately. And one thing that's, again, obvious is this is sustainable. They don't need a lot of tools. They don't need a lot of money. Actually, in such an extreme low resource setting, they're using probably the most powerful resource that they have to disseminate this message and to reach people with this message. And I will leave it there. But if you'd like to have a chat about this or any similar thing you're doing that we're not aware of, I would love to talk. Thank you for your time.